Hi, my name is Jade. I'm a 30-year-old lady from Brooklyn, New York. I've been confused and frustrated about what I found out about my boyfriend Josh, 34, ever since I found out about it. It's like my life is crashing and coming to an end right now. I never thought I would be in this type of situation because I've tried my best to live an exemplary life, treat people around me with love and kindness, and never hurt anyone. I try to put myself in others' shoes and think about how my actions might affect them, and if it's for the worst, I stop myself from doing it. Even in times past when people have hurt me and treated me like crap, coming from an abusive home, I've done my best to always treat them right and never repay evil for evil. That's the value I try to live by, and it's sad to say that no matter how much you carry yourself in a godly manner, somehow, something evil will always find a way to taint your image. Let me explain what is going on. It's about my boyfriend Josh, who I love, or let me say loved very much, because with what I know now, I don't know how to feel anymore. I met Josh a few months ago when I was in one of the worst situations of my life. It was caused by a bad relationship. I just left a 2-year relationship which I thought was going to lead to marriage, but turned out the man I was with, i.e. my ex-boyfriend, David, wasn't just a pathological liar. He also stole money from me and spread false rumors about me to family members, friends, and colleagues. I had known David since I was a child. We had practically grown up together and attended the same elementary school. We were not only close friends, we were family friends, as my mum and his mum attended the same church and were friends and colleagues in the same department in church. David and I always hung out together with the other kids, playing and sharing our experiences together. David and I were quite close, but not as close as I was with my female friend and him with his male friends, all a part of the group. That notwithstanding, he still brought me things. He would offer to share his candy with me if I had none or mine fell on the ground, and would let me copy his assignments when I didn't do mine at home. He was just an all-around nice guy, or so it seemed. The members of our family and church who saw us playing and David bringing me candy or letting me ride his bike would laugh heartily and say it seems David has found a wife, or David and Jade are two little lovebirds, and one day, they will end up getting married. Even as a little girl below 10, I always felt irritated hearing them say it, but David seemed happy and thrilled to hear them say it and would still go all out for me. I felt special, to be honest, when David would do all those nice things, but I never felt thrilled or liked it when they said I would end up as his future wife. I guess even then, I knew I was too young, and it was creepy that those people would make such statements when I just wanted to play with my dolls and toys, but I thought to myself, if that would make the candy and the free toy car rides keep coming, then, I'm cool with it, lol. Anyway, we finished elementary school up unto middle school and then went up to high school, and that was where David opened up to me. We had just gone to a friend's birthday party, and of course, like many high school students trying to be cool and do adult things, despite our Christian background, alcohol was snuck into the venue and we all picked up cups to take a few drinks. Each person seemed excited to be getting something they had never had before. We started getting tipsy. David and I and some of our friends were on a couch in our friend's sitting room discussing and chatting heartily when both our friends on the couch were called by other classmates to join in the games going on. David and I were left by ourselves and the alcohol was already kicking in. He would say something funny and I would laugh out loud heartily, when though I know David wasn't the funniest guy I've known, alcohol is a crazy drug. Before I knew it, Dave, probably emboldened by the alcohol and maybe excited by the positive response he was receiving from my laughs, leaned forward to kiss me on the lips. I froze. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know what to do within the few seconds the kiss lasted. I ended up kissing him back out of pure shock. He let go of my lips and I just froze there. I felt ashamed, awkward, guilty, and most of all, I felt angry. Why would he do that? Why would he try to ruin our friendship by starting something like that? I had already made up my mind. If he asked me out, I would say no. It was for the best. It was better than whatever awkwardness would follow when our families got together if we ever dated and it didn't work out. That was the best decision. He stares at me to see my reaction and I started back in bewilderment. I quickly got up and made for the door because I just didn't know what to say. That was my very first kiss and it was coming from someone I didn't even see a future with. Someone I saw as a brother and didn't really like him in that manner. He came after me and as I ran down the stairs, he chased after me. He stretched out his hand and held onto my arm. I could feel his hand shaking. His palm was cold with sweat even though the room had been a bit warm because of the crowd that had packed themselves into the room. I turned around to see him, to see his face looking but scared and hopeful. "I'm sorry, Jade," he said. I didn't mean to offend you." "Then why did you do it?" I asked. He looks a bit disheveled. I could tell he was still a bit tipsy from the alcohol. By then, I wasn't as tipsy as I was in the room, and the immense feelings of guilt were getting worse for me. He rubbed one hand on his hair and pushed it back and the other on his waist, trying to think straight. I wondered if he was just going to blame it on the alcohol. I hoped he would. I would easily forgive him and we would move on from this foolishness and awareness. He finally summoned up the courage to tell me what he had kept to himself all these years. He confessed to me how much he loved me and how he had held it in for so long he could not keep it to himself anymore. I immediately told David the first was sorry but didn't have any feelings. I could see the hurt in his eyes. I continued with how I felt he was like a brother to me and I saw him just as a good friend and nothing more. I didn't want to hurt him, but truly, you can't force yourself to love someone you are not romantically into, can you? Truly, David had always been there for me and looked after me, and I really suspected one day he was going to profess his feelings for me. He would act jealous when I talked about a guy the first liked and say, "Oh, no, he's probably a player and would hurt you." I would just dismiss it sarcastically and tell him to stop being jealous, and he would pretend not to care while laughing, asking me why I thought he would be jealous. Anyway, after I turned him down, our friendship was not the same as it used to be. It began to deteriorate from there on. We went from still hanging out with our mutual friends once in a while to just seeing either in the school hallway and saying hi to each other or after church service. Our friends tried to find out what really went wrong between the both of us, and I would just dismiss it and remind them that David was a guy and I a girl, and at some point, he would want to do guy things with his guys while I did things that were expected for girls to do when we hung around. I had no ill will or bad feelings for David and I wished him the best. We moved on, graduated, and went to different college. Life was both good and bad for me, and both happy and sad. I began to date, had my ups and downs in school, abandoned my Christian faith for a while. I started having serious relationships, experimented with sex, alcohol, drugs and partying, got cheated on, cried my eyes out, found Christ again, and I struggled financially all throughout my final year in school, but still came out triumphant and victorious. I lost my father to cancer during all my struggles, and I must say that was one of the most painful times of my life. Even though my house wasn't the most loving, I graduated college with good grades and the sky was just my starting point. I was able to find a stable job with my finance degree at an accounting firm. Life basically went well. I had my ups and downs as the years went by. One day, I'm out having lunch with friends when I run into David. He seems so happy to see me. I was ecstatic to see him too. We exchanged numbers and I sat back to finish lunch with my friends. That evening, we caught up on how life had been and what each other was up to after so many years far apart from each other. He told me he completed his college program and now worked for a top law firm in New York also. As soon as I heard about top law firms, my ears nearly popped open and my heart was filled with excitement. I probed more and found out he worked for one of the top law firms, and I literally almost leapt out of my bed. I already started seeing us together and had made up my mind that if David just by chance was still in love with me and asked me to be his girlfriend again, I would say yes without any hesitation. I had already planned our wedding in our heads and even the dress I would wear on our wedding day. I mean, why not? A girl is allowed to dream, right? David and I talked about the good old days and how nostalgic we felt about everything we experienced and how different adult life is compared to life growing up. Then he asked me out to lunch. My heart skipped a beat. Yes, my plan would then be out just the way I envisioned it. I told David immediately I would check my schedule and get back to him. He's so many to please do, as he had some catching up to do and something important to tell me that could seriously change our lives forever. In my heart, I already felt like I knew what it was he was going to say to me. We hung up, and that night I dreamt of myself in a wedding dress walking down the aisle to meet my handsome prince, David, waiting happily for me at a royalty-themed wedding. The D-Day comes and I go out to have dinner with David. While we have lunch, he tries to find out if I'm with anyone. I told him, however, since I had struggled with relationships with guys being full of lies. David promised me he was here for me and told me how he never really stopped loving me and how he was here to basically be my Prince Charming and save me from all the bad decisions I had made in the past. He would make sure I never shed another tear. We held hands and kissed. My life was complete and everything was perfect, or so I thought. David and I started dating. He would leave cute little notes for me before I got up in the morning and send lovely texts to me in the afternoon telling me how much I mean to him, how I'm his one and only princess love, and how we would be happy together now. I believed him. I believed everything. We dated for a year and a half, and David popped the question. He asked me to be his beautiful wife, and the only answer I had for him was yes. We were happy. We started talking about how we would inform our parents and start planning our wedding. As the day went by, we would talk about the wedding and life after. I noticed though that anytime I brought up naming our kids certain names, even though I was just joking and know I had to wait to be married before thinking up a lot of kids' names, he would get irritated and look pissed off. I didn't take it as anything serious and just assumed he wasn't happy with my words because he felt I was trying to run before walking. All of a sudden he changed completely. He rarely picked up my calls, and when he did, he answered like I was disturbing him. I felt like I did something wrong. I apologized if I ever offended him. He said it was nothing, just work stress. I didn't see my boyfriend David for weeks and he would barely pick up his calls. After a while, he visits me on a Friday evening and starts apologizing to me again, and promises to change. He says he was dealing with work stress and depression from a chaotic life. As the loving and faithful girlfriend that I am, I believe him. I ask him to stay for the weekend and blow off steam and we can deal with other issues later. He obliged and I thought my relationship was going well. He leaves Sunday evening and everything seems to have gone back to normal. On Wednesday, I'm trying to find an important piece of gold jewelry I had kept locked up in my trinket box my mom had given me when I was 18, as she had worn and kept it for me. I couldn't see it. I began to panic. I went to the other safe I kept in my wardrobe and checked. I noticed the $10,000 in Hermes jewelry I had kept hidden there was also gone. Confusion set in. I checked my doors and windows for signs of anyone breaking in, but no one had broken in. The only person who was with me was David, and he stayed over for the weekend. I called him but his number wasn't going through. I called the police. They came and did their thing and went to go pick him up at his house, but it was empty. I mean, the house was totally empty. He had moved everything out. His law firm said he tendered his resignation the last Friday and was not seen again that week. It all made sense. This was why he was acting weird. He was planning to run away from the country. But why will he steal $10,000 and tarnish his image? Was it to get back at me for rejecting him as a child? I was devastated that someone I loved would go to that extent to hurt me. I was hurt. I cried every night for a month. I developed trust issues and I couldn't put my trust in any man again. No, not after what David did to me. I just buried myself in work and my family tried to cheer me up. A year later, I was going about life, and I had moved on from the nightmare I called a relationship and was just trying to get myself together. I had gone out to drop off a new dress for my sister at her apartment. I had the intention of seeing her, but she had other visitors by the time I got there, so I just excused myself and told her we would talk over the phone. I was walking along the road to where I parked my car across the street when I felt someone's hands grab me by the waist and pull me quickly off the path I was walking on. I fell to the ground with the person. Looked up and just right in front of me was a crashed vehicle. I looked behind and a guy was sitting on the floor right beside me. Turned out he had just saved my life. I could have been crushed by that vehicle. I was a lucky girl. I muttered the words "thank you" to the guy in front of me. He stood up and stretched his right hand out, beckoning for me to take his hand so I could get up myself. I got up and checked for bruises. I was fully covered and had none. I gave him a hug, thanking him again. I asked him what his name was. "Josh," he replied. I told him, "Josh, you are my angel." He burst out laughing. I gave him my number, and the next weekend, I invited him out to lunch as a thank you for his kindness. We began to get to know each other and I realized I actually liked Josh. He asked me out again, and by the 5th week of us going out and talking on the phone, he told me he liked me and asked me to be his girlfriend. I immediately said yes, as I felt our meeting must have been by divine intervention. He was also handsome, tall, doing well for himself. We've been official for about 2 months now and I felt happy. I had finally met my soulmate. I visited yesterday and stayed the night. We were on the bed watching a movie. He was also on his laptop. He goes out to talk to his neighbor. He leaves him laptop open on the bed and goes downstairs. Before the light goes off, the email pops in. I look over and I notice a different surname than the one he told me was his. I quickly open it up and what I saw made my heart drop. I merely died. Turns out the man I'm in love with now, Josh, was charged with rape. I found his background and he used his middle name as his last. He was charged with rape. The deposition took 1 full year and it just says, transferred to another jury/court. What does this mean?
When he returned, I confronted him and he was silent.
Then he got mad that I snooped. He never addressed the elephant in the room. I just quietly took my things and left. I don't understand why my life just has to be like this.
Why do I have to end up with the worst men?
What should I do?